Ja. I will call the regular town council meeting on January 24th to order. Mayor Mark Sukup.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brett Hansen.
Here.
Councilmember Lisa Lake. Councilmember Robert Oxmacher.
Present.
Councilmember Luke Wagner.
Here. Aaron, any amendments to the agenda? Melissa, any public comments?
First up for general public comment is Kelly Lang.
Okay. Kelly, there's a button there there you go. She's going to turn it on.
Thank you. Again, my name is Kelly Lang. My comment was just for, it wasn't part of one of the agenda topics. It was for the 6F resolution. And I just wanted to comment that, I mean, I guess I'll hear more information about it later when you're talking about it. But to have a resolution, the way I read this is a resolution to prevent the petition that's going around prior to you guys receiving the petition is, I don't think is very good for the community, that you're trying to avoid what the community would like and have a hearing on. So that was it.
Yeah, I think you misread
Okay.
that. I apologize. But what our resolution does is basically say that we suggest the town people not sign that initiative. It has nothing to do with the ability to send around an initiative. It has no attempt to stop the initiative or any of those factors.
Okay, that's great news because I was taking it as you're like doing a preemptive.
No,
We're not going to accept the
absolutely.
petition,
We
so
wouldn't do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Garrett Morgan.
Garrett Morgan, kind of the same situation. I was confused.
Garrett, could you give your address too? We need to put it in the record.
It's 5772 Jedediah Drive.
Thank you.
Kind of echoing the same comments as before. It's quite confusing. I don't know. I guess I'm still new to some of the town meetings and what needs to be done. But it definitely sounds like you're stifling the ability of us to use our tools that we have and to promote activism amongst our citizens. So I don't really understand it. Hopefully you guys will go into a deep explanation about why you're opposing it and what you will do to help ensure that we as the town are also on board with what you guys think is good for the town. I just would like to see that happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, to be very, very clear, town can always do an initiative. To be very, very clear, town, if they get enough, if a group of people in the town get enough signatures on a petition, then that will go to vote and we'll make sure it gets to vote. The resolution is the same as the petition in the fact that we're saying, here's our position on that petition. We're not saying don't pass the petition around. We are suggesting don't sign it, but we are not suggesting don't pass the petition around. I mean, there's not even an attempt to do that.
So you will be explaining your position then as why you think that, or I guess I'm confused still because you're saying don't sign it, but because we don't think it's a good idea.
Have you seen a petition?
I have.
And you've read it?
I'm not all the way through.
Okay, I'd suggest that you read it,
Right.
Because our position is pretty clearly stated in there, I think. I mean, I think our position.
I've also read the parts where you guys want to allow Topgolf to be given incentive to build there. So
I have
read that.
So just a sec. We have never discussed incentives in this council.
Oh,
We
not
have
publicly.
never talked about giving incentives to Topgolf. And in fact, we don't know if Topgolf has even applied for a petition for a building permit in Timnath. We don't know that because other people are making rumors. That's not fact. That's
Is-
just rumor.
This is not stated on the website under the development process under that plot? Because I'm pretty sure it is.
The development is, but it hasn't come to us. We have not talked about it at all. We as a council have not talked about Top Golf at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have for general public comment.
Okay. Anybody else on
Oh,
what
wait,
chat?
I'm sorry. I'm wrong. John Henderson, is he on Zoom?
Yes, good evening.
Okay, if you can state your name and address for the council and go ahead and have your 3 minutes.
Thank you so much and good evening. My name is John Henderson. I'm a volunteer associated with the Coloradans for Metro District Reform. I had occasion to share with you an analysis I prepared for the Saratoga Falls District regarding their recent interest in increasing the fees on the residents. I'm available throughout the meeting if you all have any questions on it. I just wanted to call a couple of highlights to the council's attention. The comparison that was made in support of the application, comparing it to District 1, referencing the fact that District 1 had made a similar application to increase their fees. It's important to keep in mind that District 1 has no residents. It's the developer district, the service district that the District 3, the resident district before you now, is making payments to, or was making payments to, and is still making payments to on the debt. My suggestion, and again, this is based upon our work over the last 6 years in addressing abuses in metro districts and working for reform. The suggestion is granting the application, but for only a year, to give the new resident board in transition an opportunity to balance their budget by reducing costs and hopefully renegotiating their debt with the developer to free up money that is now going to the developer to pay their debt, which they hold, and instead directing that money to pay for their operations and maintenance. Unfortunately, the service plan that was placed before you had a finance plan that underestimated the income and underreported the potential expenses. So when they told you when the application was initially made that they would be able to pay for operations and maintenance through the taxes, we now see that's not the case. And it's troubling that the management company, which has so many of the districts, many of them in your community, says this is normal. Deficit spending for local government is just the way it is. And that's a systemic problem that we're concerned is going to continue to adversely affect the residents. Available for any questions later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your articulate comments. Anybody else, Melissa?
No, but with John Henderson's comments, I will also submit his written comments to the final minutes.
Okay. Okay, great. Consent agenda. Any comments? There's one typo there, Melissa, town instead toe on 4A. So if we could revise that, that'd be good. Okay.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amendment to correct the typing?
I move to approve the consent agenda with the typo correction.
A second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Council reports. Council, any comments? Okay. I don't either. Finance report. Lisa, anything extra you wish to say? Okay. Don, anything extra you would like to say? Matt, any additional on the community? Did you, sorry? No, we don't. And Chief Jones, do you have anything? Okay, thanks. Okay, business 6A. Resolution number 7, series 2023, a resolution approving the second amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the town of Timnath, Colorado and Saratoga Falls Metropolitan District numbers 1 and 3. Carolyn.
Thank you. Good evening. This is, but we have before you a resolution to approve a second amendment to an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Timnath and the Saratoga Falls Metropolitan Districts number 1 and number 3. We were approached in December by Saratoga Falls Metropolitan District number 3, stating that the board of directors of the district had adopted a resolution setting an operations fee in the amount of $1,080 per resident within the district and per home. That we then asked for additional information before we brought this to you, and I'll share some of that information. Specifically, the board of directors is currently composed of 4 residents and 1 developer representative. The district is required to have prior approval of the town before it can impose an operations and maintenance mill levy. That's consistent with your model service plan, and the service plan itself and the current IGA requires that the town approve any operations and maintenance mill levy or increase to the operations and maintenance mill levy. So what they've requested is that the town approve an operations and maintenance mill levy in the amount of $1,080 per home, which can then be increased by the inflation rate. And so they have previously, as was noted by the public comments, Saratoga Falls Metropolitan District number 1 had asked for an operations and maintenance mill levy, and now district number 3 is asking for that. We have before us a letter that was submitted by the board of directors of the district, which I'm going to be handing out to the town council. It is signed by all 5 members of the board of directors of the district, and I'll read it really quickly to you. Dear Town Council members, this letter is presented by the Board of Directors of the Saratoga Falls Metropolitan District number 3 to confirm that on November 30th, 2022, the board voted unanimously to adopt an operations fee resolution that is enclosed with the Town Council meeting packet. Prior to adopting the fee resolution, the board held a 1-hour public hearing with the district residents. The hearing was well attended with approximately 35 to 40 attendees. Residents asked questions and expressed opinions regarding the district's operations and the proposed fee, and the board engaged in discussions to answer those questions. In addition, the board discussed with residents the current allocation of mill levy revenue, with approximately 75% of revenues allocated to the debt service issued prior to the existing board's election, and the remainder used to fund operations. By the end of the hearing, no members of the public requested the board not to adopt the fee. In addition, the board stated its intent to reduce the fee as assessed valuations increase within the district. When adopting the fee, the board weighed the financial burdens on residents and the expectations of a well-maintained community. The board requests that the town approve the amendment of the IGA to authorize the operations fee pursuant to the district service plan. Thank you for your consideration of this request. The district's manager and legal counsel will be present at the town meeting on January 24th to answer questions regarding the board's request. They've also provided a copy of their budget that does show that they have budgeted for more operations and maintenance expenses than would be covered by the operations and maintenance mill levy alone. And specifically for maintaining parks and open space within the district was their request. And I'm open to any questions about that. Also, a representative of the district is here. As noted, the manager and the attorney for the district are here.
So unless you guys want to ask questions, I'll invite the Saratoga Falls manager to go ahead and speak. Or whoever you want. I don't care. All right.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Colin Milkey with the law firm Sutter and Vanderwall. As Carolyn said, I am legal counsel for Saratoga Falls Metropolitan District Number 3. Carolyn really did sum that up thoroughly and accurately. The board for District Number 3 met on November 30th, discussed an operations fee, which would be in addition to the mill levy that's currently imposed. And the fee would go towards the limited operations of parks, recreation, trails, landscaping, those types of services that they want to provide within their community. And so the fee is capped at $1,080 per resident, and it is limited to inflation. And as the board had discussed at that meeting as well, they don't anticipate that the fee will be that large for that long. As assessed valuations increase within the district, the board did express its desire that increased operations mill levy revenues would go to be able to reduce the fee over time. But as things stand right now, they do have an extensive trail system, extensive landscaping, parks within the community that the residents want maintained. And the board has determined through its unanimous vote that the operations fee would be the best way to cover those costs.
Is there anybody else who'd like to talk from Saratoga Falls? Okay. Wait a minute, you're not, you want public comment, right? Or are you, pardon? Oh yeah, please do. I'm sorry. I'm just making sure we got the right order here.
I'm not sure what to do either. I just wanted to maybe give a little bit more.
Okay, so
context.
could you just state your name and
Sure.
address? Sorry, I just threw you off.
Yeah, John Nelson. I'm on the board for the Metro District 3. I live in Timnath in the district. And the context I guess I wanted to provide is, as I talked to my neighbors, we all were under the impression when we bought our homes that the mill levy would cover operations. So we were all pretty upset to find out that just the budgeting and the forecasting hadn't really matched up with the expenses. So I guess I just want to make it clear that we're not excited about this fee. We're all unhappy about it, but everyone we talked to, we sent out a letter in anticipation of this as we started looking at the budget and realizing that there was, once the developer stopped subsidizing us, there was really no way to maintain our neighborhood without a fee. So we sent out a letter just laying that out as clearly as we could, that we hadn't decided formally to do this, but we just wanted to give everyone in the neighborhood a chance to talk to Alex, to talk to us. We had very few, I think it was less than 5 people reached out to Alex, but we did have a really big turnout at our meeting. The letter said 30 to 35. My recollection was more like 60 plus. So I'm not sure.
60 plus?
Yeah. So we had normally we get 4 or 5 people attending our meetings. So there was a lot of interest. The letter worked. It got a lot of attention. We had a lot of people asking questions. The Q&A, the whole meeting was 2.5 hours. I think an hour of it was public comment. So we try to do everything in our power to give our residents as much opportunity to ask us questions, to push back. And we did have some pushback. Nobody was happy about it. But at the end, everyone that we talked to seemed to understand that this was the only way forward. So I just want to give you that context. And the last thing, just in response to John Henderson, I would strongly request that you not limit it to 1 year. I just think that would be really difficult if we have to come back with this every year. Again, our intention is if our home values appreciate, as some of the new construction gets into the tax base, We hope to be able to lower it, but in the short term, we need to build our reserves. There's maintenance costs that we need to eventually have. So we would just like the flexibility to keep it at the 1,080 per lot permanently, and then we will lower it as a board as necessary. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to give any more context, but that's what I wanted to share.
So Mr. Nelson, I do have a question. So there was, let's say 60 people, give or take, that showed up. And I know you didn't do a vote, but just in your opinion, you know, polling and talking to people that were there, what would you have said was it 60-40? Was it 70-30? Was it 90-10 that were for or against it? Well, it
Yeah,
sounds like they're for. So
Right.
how many were for?
I'm really hesitant to to guess what the neighborhood would say. What I would say is everyone I talked to and engaged with, I would say 100% were grudgingly for it, meaning nobody liked it, but when you looked at the numbers, it was just obvious that we had to do this. So again, I don't want to speak for the residents, but that was my impression from discussions on the Q&A as well as just offline.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a question for Mr. Nelson?
Just a couple. I want to get a sense of the scope of this fee. Like ballpark, what's the average home value in Saratoga in filing 3?
Relying on Zillow type numbers, it's probably in the 650. Some of the recent sales have been selling for 1.2 million. But those are not in our tax base yet. So I don't know where it's going to settle out, but somewhere in that general neighborhood.
So probably between say 6 and $1 million. So the property tax to town of Timnath burden there is between say $300 and $500 a year. Does that sound about right?
For the operating mill levy?
No, for the town tax, town property tax.
That's right.
I just got one, but I can't remember what it was.
And then for the mill levy, do you know approximately what that is?
I have it in a spreadsheet at home. All I can tell you is the total amount of the operating mill levy ended up being about $85,000, I think, last year. And last year, it all went to District 1 that paid all our fees, and then the shortfall was paid by the developer at this point. And that shortfall was about, I think it was about 240, 250,000, somewhere in that ballpark. So that was when the developer said they were done, that was the nut we had to cover. And so just for context, one of our neighbors said, I'm fine with the mill levy or the new fee as long as like it's an improvement. And I said, I hate to tell you this, but we're treading water. We're just trying to cover, what was already in place. So we have a beautiful neighborhood. We all love it. But it's expensive. It's a low density neighborhood and it costs a lot to maintain it.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to your plight. But also in terms of scale, like what you're requesting here is, essentially 2 to 3 times what the town collects from your residents to go to all the things that the town maintains in the area, the street out front and things like that.
Yeah. So this was brought up earlier. It's not entirely clear to me how this happened because I know there's a forecast that gets sent to you as a town, right? Saying here's how much we think it'll cost to maintain the community. And that's used to sort of justify the mill levy. So I don't know how that estimate was so far off from what the mill levy is, but that happened long in the past. We're just inheriting the situation. But yeah, it is a big number. I think, again, like we're hoping it comes down as our mill levy goes up, but in the short term, if you have any ideas for other ways to do it, I'd love to hear them, but we as a board couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're stuck and I know that this is always a ongoing topic. I know the town has, done a lot to try to educate people about metro districts and what that is. And I think you're right. Most people move into a metro district and maybe don't kind of appreciate the full landscape. I know we'll continue with our education. Certainly when new requests come to us, I think it makes sense for us to scrutinize those. So I sympathize where you're coming from. But I also appreciate, the comments of Mr. Henderson in terms of holding this accountable, not just signing off on these fees willy-nilly. I don't know what the answer is, but I certainly appreciate where you're coming from.
Yeah, if I could add
Thanks,
one
Max.
thing. There's gonna be a lot of development in Timnath over the next 10, 15 years. A lot of it's gonna filter through you. And just for what it's worth, one of the things that was difficult, I think, for our residents is that because there was the financing district and the operating district, like even if you did try to do your homework and look at what the finances were for the district, it was a bit clouded, right? Because if you looked at our district, it would show, oh, we had $85,000 in revenue come in and our outflows were 85,000. So the assumption, just looking at that alone, would suggest that we were fine. When in fact, that was all just flowing to the operating district, which was covering the surplus out of their own pocket. So to the extent possible, I just would encourage you to maybe shy away from those types of structures if possible, just to make it more transparent for future residents. I know it would have helped me analyzing my purchase in the past, but thank you for your time. And again, if you have more questions, I'm right over there.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Brett, you're our resident Metro District expert. Do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, we had a town metro district committee a couple of years ago that was mostly made up of residents, and where we analyzed how we wanted to move forward with the town's policy towards the metro districts, and this specific type of situation even came up in our discussions. And for me, my two concerns looking at this would have been, what has the board done to notify residents? And it seems like there's been very good effort there to make sure people were aware that this was happening, as well as, was this a resident controlled board? If it was a developer controlled board, I would be more likely to just say, no, you need to get more residents on the board to prove this kind of thing before I would get behind it. But when it's a resident controlled board asking to pay fees so they can take care of their neighborhood, our general feeling in the Metro District Committee was it's their business, it's their call. And if the rest of the neighborhood doesn't like it, they can vote a new board and then get rid of those fees the next year. It doesn't have to be a long-term thing like the mill levy debt commitments, things of that nature. So I appreciate all the information that's been shared, and I appreciate the efforts, especially of the Saratoga Falls residents, to get on that board and get involved. So I'm comfortable moving forward with this.
Just a sec. Oh, you're a board member of Saratoga Falls. Please step forward. You need a name tag.
Yeah, sorry, I was late. Tyler Reed Miller, 1481 Larimer Ridge Parkway, board member with John. Basically, just want to say I'm here. It's, Alex has done a wonderful job. Colin's done a wonderful job. John's done a great job. It sucks, but it's the reality of it. The budgets have to be balanced. Wish maybe, well, I shouldn't say that. We only have so much money to spend. And the thing I would say is that that wasn't really addressed clearly. If we didn't impose this fee, I think the whole neighborhood and property values would deteriorate much more than the $1,000 savings, should it not be imposed. So that's it. Just wanted to say I'm here and I agree with this. So thank you guys.
Thanks for the comments. Melissa, wouldn't this resolution does not require a public hearing?
I would defer to council.
No, it does not.
It does not? Okay. All right. Any questions from anybody? I mean, I'm going to just reiterate that when I first saw this, the resolution wasn't signed by the resident board, and we didn't know if it had been supported. The fact that 4 elected community members voted unanimously to do this, I think indicates that the residents want it. And as Brett said, if they don't want it and don't like what their representatives have, they can always vote them out. And so because of that reason, I hate to see it as much as probably the residents do. I mean, I just don't like the idea of a fee getting popped in after you've bought your house. That said, if you want that fee to sit there and enhance the neighborhood and stuff, I'm all for it. Okay, so any other comments? Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7, series 2023, resolution approving the second amendment to intergovernmental agreement between the town of Timnath, Colorado and Saratoga Falls Metropolitan Districts 1 and 3.
I move to approve the resolution approving the second amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the town of Timnath and the Saratoga Falls Metropolitan Districts numbers 1 and 3.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Resolution number 7, series 2023, a resolution approving the second amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the town of Timnath, Colorado and Saratoga Falls Metropolitan Districts number 1 and 3 passed unanimously. Thanks everybody for their thoughts and comments. Resolution number 8, series 2023, a resolution making certain findings of facts and declaring eligibility of the proposed annexation of parcels of land to the town of Timnath, known as the Willis Farm annexation. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm actually going to do all 3 items there, 6, B, C, and D together, just because they all correlate to each other.
And that's fine. I would just let me go procedure wise. So you can go ahead and make that presentation. Residents will have the opportunity 3 times here to identify on the public hearing.
Correct.
And I'll open up a public hearing for each one of those as we go through.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
So go ahead. Thank you,
Yep.
Kevin.
No worries. Thank you, Mayor. So this first one is a resolution making certain findings of fact that the property known as Willis Farm complies with the requirements of the land use code and the Colorado revised statutes for annexation, that it is the contiguity of the 1/6 requirement is being met, and that staff is recommending no additional terms and conditions to be imposed on the property. The Willis Farm property consists of 2 parcels of land totaling roughly 79 acres, currently within Larimer, unincorporated Larimer County. The properties are located at the northwest corner of Main Street and County Road 42E. The property owner is Willis Estates LLC, which is represented by Mr. John Turner, who is the owner and manager, and the applicant is TB Group, represented tonight by Kristen Turner. So as I mentioned, these are for 2 parcels, roughly totaling 80 acres in unincorporated Larimer County. Staff and then the proposed zoning for the Willis Farm is industrial I-1, which is in compliance with the recently approved back in 2020 comp plan amendment to change it from low density residential to employment regional commercial, which the I-1 zoning is in compliance with, and that is the proposed zoning from the applicant tonight. Planning Commission held a hearing on the annexation and the zoning back in December 20th of 2022 and passed or recommended approval by 5-0 vote to the town council with the following comments. There were concerns by residents of an adjacent neighborhood that were echoed by the Planning Commission. Those concerns were about buffering between the residences and the proposed industrial development, the future uses and their impacts to residential through light, sound, or smell, and then not wanting Carriage Road to be extended from the neighborhood from the north, which is known as Homestead Estates, to the Willis Farm property. Those concerns were brought up at Planning Commission. They were also part of your packet as public comment, and Planning Commission just wanted to echo those comments to you all. So with that, I will turn it over to Kristen for a brief presentation.
Hello, is the mic volume okay? All right. Okay, so just to get oriented again, this property is located at the intersection of Main Street and County Road 42E. The property is roughly 79 acres, and what you see in front of you is the annexation map. So this is just a technical drawing that shows the boundary of the property that would be annexed into the town of Timnath, should you approve that. And the next one is our zoning map. So we do have two zoning designations. Everything south of the ditch is proposed as industrial. And then the small portion that's located north of the ditch that has the existing farmhouse on it is proposed as residential estate. So this is a little conceptual layout of what it could potentially look like when it develops. We did have a neighborhood meeting with residents from around that area. It was a while ago, but it was a really productive meeting. We got some great feedback. And so I just wanted to briefly tell you about the plan and also some of those comments that we heard and incorporated into the plan as well. So you'll notice that we're showing two connection points for this property. One would align with the proposed roadway in the Fisher Farm development, and another one out to McLaughlin. You'll notice also that the property is showing buffering green space around the perimeter. One of the primary things that we heard from our neighbors that came to our neighborhood meeting was that desire to have some buffering. We do have 5 properties or 4 properties, I believe, directly adjacent to the property line. And so at that time, discussion and consideration, we looked at a 60-foot buffer. This was prior to when the code was changed, which now requires that 60-foot buffer. But that was something that we had taken into consideration early on before that code was in place and felt like it was appropriate. You'll also notice the location of the proposed post trail that runs along Main Street and then south of the ditch. And so the idea is that post trail should run through the property. After feedback from the neighbors, we also thought that was a great place to locate the trail to provide some additional buffer. So that's going to help create that separation. There'll be a trail easement, the landscape that comes along with that. So visually, it'll create a nice space between rear lot lines and the proposed development. We do not have any specific users at this time. This is just annexation and zoning. So specific users plans will come back in front of the town again in the future. So there will be an opportunity for folks to comment and ensure that it's consistent with the code. But right now, this is just a conceptual idea of what this could look like. And we just wanted to point out how connections would be made, that post trail, which we see as a benefit to the existing neighbors that are there, as well as the folks that would be working in this location, and how we incorporated some of those comments that we heard, some of that feedback. That's all I've got for tonight, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Brett?
If I recall correctly, there was interest expressed in trying to find kind of a larger single user, like a larger HP design center, something of that nature. Is that something you guys are still looking at, or are you looking at a bunch of smaller users? I know you don't have a definitive user yet, but I'm just asking.
Sure, we don't have a definitive user, and I will look to John to make sure I'm not saying something incorrectly, but I think that they would be open to any appropriate user for the location.
So it's still pretty up in the air with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if they'd be looking to open another site quite so close to their other one, but.
Anybody else? Robert, you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. So Kevin, this was amended in the 2020 comp plan update to basically take it from stuff that had been residential to this industrial zone.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about the kind of big picture and, why this is a good location for industrial uses versus somewhere else?
Yeah, so during that process, of the comp plan amendment, staff had looked at kind of all of the surrounding properties for that are around this. Properties that are immediately to the west are already designated as employment regional commercial that could set up for regional commercial industrial, kind of something very similar to this. And then the Fisher subdivision to the south, which was a little bit higher density residential. Staff at that time and, Planning Commission and Council at that time felt that this also provided, additional users for that, since it is adjacent to potentially where other, potential industrial or regional commercial uses would be. It could be a transition from the frontage I-25 and frontage road to the east with the high school just to the north of this as well. And then some commercial within the Saratoga Falls subdivision. There would be, potential higher intense uses that were coming to this, with it being generally light industrial is the way the zoning is. The closest example would be Goodman Street, where the old admin building is, to where they are users that are, there for the day. It's either their little warehouse or, some type of small manufacturer that's there during the day, has less trips, less impact on roads, some things like that. So that was what went through the comp plan amendment back in 2020 for this property.
Thank you. I watched the Planning Commission hearing on this and certainly read all the neighbors' feedback and kind of the desires there, and the note that Planning Commission attached to this. I guess I'm curious how the council ought to respond to that note. Do we feel that kind of the purpose of that note is already encompassed in the proposed zoning, or that we need to do something above and beyond that?
Yeah, so to add conditions or anything like that is at council's discretion. It would be to the annexation agreement with the agreement of the property owner. At that time, well, with those thoughts that came up, staff has felt it is achievable throughout the development process. To address those concerns. As Kristen had mentioned, there is the Lake Canal ditch that runs between the neighborhood and then this property on the north. Just by the virtue of a ditch, you'll have about a 60-foot wide easement just for that ditch company anyway. And then, as she had mentioned, the Pros Plan Trail was to then buffer that to the south with a 20 to 30-foot easement. So just between the north property line and even then the first lot line for development, you're already at about 80 to 90 feet. And then the land use code setbacks for industrial for a rear setback is 20 feet. So even then, to get to the first building, you're already at 100 to 100 feet as you get through that process. And then with any user that does come forward, we do have in our land use code requirements for light and sound. In our municipal code, we have noise ordinances for hours that noise can be had and what decibels. Our land use code has lighting regulations for downward lighting, shielding, and then lights being turned off outside of business hours and only security lighting. So generally what you would see on a residential home anyway, potentially. And then any odors has to meet state requirements. So if there is a business that does go in there that is not meeting, state requirements for emissions, that would have to be dealt with the state because they have pretty rigorous requirements for that.
So I guess I'm getting the sense that although we appreciate that the spirit of the note, there's not an obvious thing that the council could adopt right now as conditions to annexation that isn't already addressed in the code.
It will be addressed in the code. That's what I was saying. It's up to you guys as a council. If you want to actually formally adopt any of those as conditions, that would go in the annexation agreement. But that's where it would also have to have the consent of the property owner to agree to those conditions. But yeah, staff's feel is that we can address a lot of those concerns through the development process.
And then Chris, I'm not sure if this is better for you or for Kevin, but we have this current zoning, but it seems like often we have later requests for a PD overlay to to kind of redo the rules. Is that something that is on the horizon here, or is the existing zoning anticipated to meet your needs?
I'm not aware of any request for a PD overlay.
So I have.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I guess I just follow up with Robert's comments a little bit. So I mean, sometimes codes change. I mean, is it, and I guess maybe this is partially a question for the council as well, is it still worth formalizing some of these setback requirements as part of the annexation agreement, just to make sure we are addressing these concerns that have been raised to us for long-term, if it seems like there's no harm in putting a condition of, they need to have that 100-foot setback, even if our code's already going to address it, just in case there's some change to the code by a future council. Be a thought I would put out there for the council to consider. Is that something, Kevin, that we could do without clashing with our codes or legal process?
Well, that's where I mentioned you'd have to have the consent of the property owner on that with the annexation agreement, adding in that term. As I mentioned, we actually, as you might remember, we recently updated our land use code for buffer requirements to actually enhance them.
Yeah.
Actually make them a little bit more stringent with the types of plantings, the amount of plantings, and the width for that. So from staff standpoint, I don't see us going backwards on that anytime soon with that, especially because we've been.
Can there be some kind of documentation that at least flags this if there's ever a question on this particular property for a future council that's done,
Carolyn, I don't know. That would be probably more in your realm.
Yeah, I think the way to flag it would really be to add it as a condition of approval of the annexation, or just to ask your staff to try to make a note of it and remember it.
Okay.
So,
because I mean, the
Yeah.
concern we were getting from residents was, this is going to be here long after this council is here. So they want to make sure we are making decisions that cement things that were agreed to in the discussions that we've had. So,
Can I comment
Yeah.
on which? I think it's superfluous what you're
Okay.
concerned about, because let's just think about it. There's a 60-foot ditch. That ditch is going to be there no matter what.
Right.
So that's 60, and the neighborhood asked for 100-foot setback. Okay, so that's 60 foot. The Poudre River Trail is going to go through there, and the various governments that are paying for that are going to want their 20 feet. So now you're at 80 feet. There's got to be a setback from the lot line along there. And you said 20 feet, Kevin?
Yeah. And just to clarify one thing you said, it's not the Poudre River Trail. That's a Prost Plan trail. So just a
Okay.
community trail.
Thank you.
But typically those trails do come in a 20 to 30 foot wide easement anyway. So very generally, just not the Poudre River Trail.
So you're already at 100 feet. Why?
Okay. I mean, I agree. What I'm asking is a belt, suspenders, duct tape, the whole,
Yeah.
the whole deal there. I'm just wanting to make sure we are addressing those concerns. And I agree with you. I do think it is unlikely that any staff or council would go backwards on our setback requirements. I just want to make sure we at least
I don't think
explore
they
it.
have the ability to. That's
Okay.
what I'm trying to say. I don't think they have the ability to. You can't put a building on the ditch.
Right.
The ditch company is going to protect that 60 feet along there with their lives.
Right.
And then you've got the trail, maybe it's 10 feet, I don't know, but at 10 to 20 feet there. And then you have to have a setback in the back. Any industrial building wants a setback. So
Okay.
I just seem superfluous.
Okay. Just wanted to explore the topic a little bit. So that's all I had.
So Kevin, with Carriage Road, when the comp plan was changed in 2020, there was no plan for that ever to go through. Because that was one of the other residents' concerns
Yep.
was Carriage Road. Right?
So Carriage Road staff has actually looked at Carriage Road quite extensively through this annexation process. If this property were to develop as residential as previously on the comp plan, it would be staff's recommendation that Carriage Road would continue just to make that connectivity between residential subdivisions. Since the proposal is for industrial, staff does not feel that Carriage Road needs to extend to tie into industrial to a residential user. This proposal also is going to have access from County Road 42E, to the south, and then also from McLaughlin Lane, which is on the west side of the property, up to Prospect. So with having those 2 points of access, staff felt that that was adequate for an industrial development, not needing Carriage Road to go through. So it is not staff's recommendation throughout this process to have Carriage Road extend.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think it's a good idea to vote without Brett.
Well, it is public
Okay,
hearing, Mayor.
So first
Oh,
thing
okay, we got
yeah.
public hearing
Yep.
anyway. Okay. So will you, Melissa, would you open the public hearing for resolution number 8, series 2023? Now, I want to be clear because all that 6B does is say, does this property qualify for annexation? Correct?
It does. There is also part of 6B that no additional terms or conditions are being imposed on the property.
Okay. So as you're talking, if you want to talk about this, try to keep your comments to the fact of, are you arguing that it can't be annexed into the town? If you are, then 6B, do the public hearing. If you don't like the development or planning or any of that kind of stuff, 6C and 6D is where you'd want to speak. And I'm just trying to make sure everybody knows what slot it is, because I know we sometimes get confused. Yes, ma'am. You could do that on 6B.
Yep.
Okay. So, Melissa, will you open the public hearing for resolution number 8, series 2023 public hearing?
Yes, I open the public hearing at 6:51. And I have Randy Stunt for 6B.
Yeah, it's sort of everything all kind of glommed into one. And it's not an opposition, it's just an additional comment on.
No, that's great.
So my name is Randy Stout. I live at 1801 Meadow Air.
Oh.
And we've been talking about this now for over 2 years. Initially, the residents of Homestead Estates were pretty opposed to industrial. But through conversations with council and planning staff, we came around in the spirit of compromise to agree that industrial might be the right answer. And so while we don't oppose anything that's been said tonight, we just want to make sure that the conditions that we requested that Matt mentioned or Kevin mentioned are carried forward, and everybody understands that we really want the buffer. We really want limits on noise. We really want Carriage Road to end in Homestead Estates. And to make you aware that we're certainly going to be watching this into the future, especially as the development proposals come through.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Jill Handwork.
Hi, I'm Jill Handwork, 1733 Meadow Air Drive. And I appreciate all the thought that's gone into this so far and the work that the Turner Group has done to listen to us. But I still can't help but wake up at night thinking there's an Arby's in my backyard. The myriad of uses that this is going to allow
Thinking there's a
scares
what?
me.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
That there's an Arby's in my backyard.
Arby's?
Any kind of fast food. I mean, I literally had a nightmare about that. There's a myriad of uses. And so that's why we want the conditions added to the petition to ensure that our neighborhood is protected in the long run, regardless of what happens down the line with the development. And we're not asking, I understand the 100-foot and how you got there, but we are asking 100 feet from the south side of the Lake Canal. So, and if you look at this map, the neighborhood on the north, the buffer there is smaller than on the south side or the east side. So we've been here the longest. We'd like just give us a little more room. So appreciate that. Because
Thank
we
you.
just,
Thank you very much. Melissa?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Real quick, I'd like to submit for the record the presentation by staff, by Kevin Noble and by the developer, as well as the discussion that the council has had and the items in the board packet as well for this public hearing. And we'll do that for the next two public hearings as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Carolyn, do I bring it up to a vote right now for 6B?
Yes, so you can
Okay.
have a motion for that. Yes.
All right, so resolution number 8, series 2023, a resolution making certain findings of fact and declaring eligibility of the proposed annexation of parcels of land to the town of Timnath, Colorado, known as Willis Farm Annexation. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve resolution number 8, series 2023, a resolution making certain findings of fact and declaring eligibility of the proposed annexation of parcels of land to the town of Timnath, Colorado, known as the Willis Farm Annexation.
I'll second.
And I've got Robert seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Ordinance number 3, series 2023, an ordinance approving the annexation for property known as Willis Farm to the town of Timnath. Public hearing, I think, right? Yeah, so do we have
That's correct.
anybody for that?
Usually, well, does staff want to present?
It was all in this.
Okay.
I'd like to submit for the record the presentation that Mr. Coble made, as well as the presentation by the developer and the public comments for this public hearing as well, since they related to both, as well as the council discussion and the items in the council packet.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. Any public discussion?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a logistics question.
A logistics?
Yes, yeah.
Sure, go ahead. You can stamp up there.
My name is Eric Gardner, 1709 Carriage Road. I'm the president of the Homestead Estates Association, Homeowners Association. I didn't hear it exactly here that this, when you did the annexation, the petition that we had would be part of that annexation as a condition. It sounded like some of it might be, but some of it won't be. I just wanted to ask that question.
I think it was a half and half.
Okay.
Okay, I think the staff has said that they won't extend Carriage Road. So that's there. Staff has says there'll be 100-foot easement or setback on the ditch. What else did that? That's
No,
only
and we
two
were
things I
asking for
remember.
100 foot on the south side of the ditch.
So we're only agreeing with 100 feet total. And then what else?
So that was the request of the neighbors. That was not part of the staff. That was not part of the annexation agreement
Right.
or things like that. The staff
I'm
is
trying to
committed.
answer
Yeah.
his question.
Yeah,
Was
so-
there any other items that they had asked for that we didn't include in the motion because?
So none of those items are actually included in that motion. It was that staff will, from what Brett had said, staff will continue to at least give consideration to those items as we go through. Those items were, for that to be part of that condition, you would have had to make a condition of approval on that last one. So there's no actual terms and conditions added to that approval of the finding of fact.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to make note, there's 44 platted lots in that subdivision. And, for the Homestead Estates. So the petition that you have that's in the meeting packet had 21 of these homeowners. I didn't realize a lot of these lots, these homeowners own 2 lots. We only gave them one chance to put their name. So just, I want that noted.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that till I started counting. I'm like, wait a minute here, this isn't adding up right. So that's.
So we'll count what you're saying as public record and
Okay.
that'll be included in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to conclude the public hearing?
Yeah, I will close the public hearing at 6:59.
Okay. Ordinance number 3, series 2023, public hearing and ordinance approving annexation for property known as Willis Farm to the town of Timnath. Do I have a motion for that ordinance?
I move to approve ordinance number 3, series 2023, an ordinance approving annexation for the property known as Willis Farm to the town of Timnath.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ordinance passes unanimously. Ordinance number 4, series 2023, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as Willis Farms. Could you open a public hearing? Alyssa.
I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. Just give me 1 second here. Open the public hearing for ordinance number 4 at 7 o'clock.
Is there anybody on the public hearing?
I do not have anybody who
Did
hasn't
anybody
already
not
spoken.
sign up that would like to be in the public hearing? Okay. Come forward.
Good evening. I'm Raymond Wright, 5250 4th Avenue, Timnath, Colorado. A lot of work has went into this proposal for the Willis Farms. They're an integral part of the town of Timnath. It's nice to see that they're in the town now. I appreciate the fact that they want some of it as industrial, which has been kind of a stronghold, places to people to park their equipment, to work on things. Keep it away from the house. So it's really a plus to the town to have this is involved with the ordinances. So I appreciate your efforts, you guys, and thank you, John. We've dealt with him before, so it's good to see he's back in the saddle. So, thank you.
Thank you. Council always appreciates positive comments. Sir. And then state your name and address.
Joseph Prince Valley, 1616 Carriage Road.
Okay.
I did not sign the petition, but should have been paying attention to my email. And I'd like to just add my name along with it here. I concur with that 100-foot buffer from the south side of the ditch. I want to echo Joe's concerns about about what conditions we can have for the industrial. I am all for developing the area and having, good businesses coming in, good local businesses, but I do want to be mindful of what type of businesses, and I'm hoping we can consider limiting some of what the conditional uses would be as part of the annexation. Specifically, I think, again, reiterating fast food drive-throughs, adult clubs, I think was one of the things that could be approved with condition. I'm not sure that you all would approve that here, but there are just certain things I think it makes sense to lock out from a potential future development in that area.
And as each of those come up, we'll appreciate your comments.
Okay, so we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Carolyn?
Okay, so I want to do the same thing. I want to submit for the public record of this particular public hearing, the presentation by Mr. Coble, the presentation by the developer, as well as the public comments and the discussion by council that's been had to date, and the items that are included in the council packet for this ordinance number 4, series 2023.
Okay. Melissa, do you want to close the public hearing?
Public hearing is closed at 7:04.
Okay. Ordinance number 4, series 2023, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment to the annexation of the property known as Willis Farm. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve ordinance number 4, series 2023, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as Willis Farm.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor of ordinance number 4, series 2023, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as Wells Farm, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ordinance number 4, series 2023, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as Wells Farm has passed unanimously. Resolution number 9, series 2023, a resolution initiating annexation proceedings for property known as White Wing Annexation and giving notice of a public hearing on March 28th, 2023. Hey, Chad, usually I see that on consent agenda if all we're doing is identifying it for public comment or in setting a meeting for public comment. So please explain to me how's this different?
Yeah, so this is for the substantial compliance, which is basically just seeing that the applicant has put in the effort and made sure that they have met the requirements to, or the eligibility to become annexed to the town. That is when we start those public hearings. It'll be an ordinance, so there'll be 2 readings, and that's typically where you see it on consent agenda first when it comes in for the actual public hearing. And then the second one will be for the actual voting or hearing of that property.
Okay, thanks for explaining that, Chad.
So as we said, this is the initiation of annexation proceedings for the property known as White Wing. It is located at 5536 East County Road 40. The owner is Patricia Blackburn and the applicant is Greg Bamford with Bamford Realty. The property is within the town's GMA adjacent to Busgrove Road. It is also southwest of the Timnath Reservoir. Roughly a quarter of the property's boundary is immediately adjacent to the town of Timnath, meeting the requirement for annexation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Carolyn, should we wait for Mark to come back or do you want me to? What is our legal process here?
You have a quorum if you wanted
Okay.
to have, to go ahead with the motion.
This does not have a public hearing, correct?
No, it is not.
Okay. Robert, Luke, have anything? Oh, okay. With that, do I have a motion on resolution number 9, series 2023, a resolution initiating annexation proceedings for the property known as White Wing Annexation and giving notice of a public hearing on March 28th, 2023.
I move to approve resolution number 9, series 2023, a resolution initiating annexation proceedings for the property known as White Wing Annexation and giving notice of a public hearing on March 28th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Resolution number 10, series 2023, a resolution opposing proposed ballot initiative amending the town charter regarding the approval of protocols for proposed, and if we could, there's a typo there, proposed building submittals over 60 feet. Carolyn, would you sort of explain this? It looks like we had some confusion on it.
Yes, there has been a petition to amend the town charter that's been submitted to the town clerk to review and certify as to form. She did review and certify that petition as to form. At that point, it can be circulated and needs to be signed by 10%, right?
655.
residents to certify that. And then if it is, then the next step is that the petition will be resubmitted with signatures to the town clerk. She will then review the petition and determine if the certifications are of registered electors of the town of Timnath and are proper signatures. At that point, if she certifies that the petition is sufficient, it will be returned back to town council to certify this for a special election on the question of whether to amend the town charter. And the resolution before the town council does not make a determination on whether this will be on the ballot. It does not make a determination as to whether that petition is sufficient. Instead, what it does is it is a resolution that would express the town council's opinion and expressing opposition to the substance of the proposed charter amendment should it make its way to eventually being on the town ballot.
I'll make the first comment. I think the key thing that there seemed to be some confusion on, and it's actually the first paragraph of the resolution, first real paragraph, which is a town charter currently recognizes the citizens' powers of initiative and referendum as to legislative matters consistent with the rights reserved to registered electors of every town pursuant to Article 5, Section 1, Parent 9, Parent of the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and the proposed ballot initiative will amend this reserve right. Anybody have comments here? Okay,
Sure, I'll make some comments, which is that there is certainly a desire by the petitioners here to restrict building that would go higher than 60 feet. That is something that is currently generally prohibited under our code, and any building that went above that would go through substantial process. The guiding documents that our staff are working from right now, including the comprehensive plan, the land use code, and some of our other documents, have all come about through lengthy processes which involved substantial opportunity for public input, comment, and have been reshaped based on that. Not speaking to any particular proposal, I think danger of the citizen proposal instead of amending our other town documents by choosing to amend the town charter, it really could subject the town to future legal challenge, especially in the way that the charter proposes to potentially interfere with property rights in the fact that it kind of only attaches the citizen vote after the period which a building permit has been issued. I think this resolution makes sense for council because if it were to pass, it undermines the great work that has already gone on and undermines the future process in any future hearings. I don't know if we ever want something in this town that's over 60 feet, but should this pass, it would provide a significant negative incentive for anyone to even approach the town. You know, and I think about things that that citizens talk about. You know, we want a grocery store, we want public services, we want a rec center, and having this in our town charter could potentially eliminate or dissuade any of those conversations from ever happening. You know, I think that any exception to the current rule is something that should be considered carefully.
should be considered only after substantial public input. And, should a proposal come forward, there are multiple opportunities for public hearing, both at Planning Commission and in front of council, also in the form of neighborhood meetings. And any proposal would likely have, multiple opportunities, be it amendment to the comp plan, amendment to the zoning, any PUD, any conditional uses, things like that. So I believe that we already have procedures in place that allow for the type of citizen input that this initiative proposes. My real fear here, though, is limiting the possibility of future opportunities for the town, and also subjecting the town to legal liability by putting it in the founding document. And so for those reasons, I think it does make sense to pass this resolution. Brett?
I'll go and add on to some Robert's comments. My concerns are twofold with the way this resolution is written. First are the legal concerns. As Robert alluded to, it blatantly retroactively strips private property rights. I think that is territory that's going to land us in a lawsuit. It just will. And I mean, I think it's worth noting, the authors of this legislation are rival developers to a proposed business. I don't think it's their intent to write laws that protect the town from legal troubles. They may have good intentions, but I don't think that's their primary interest, is trying to protect our legal processes, or even necessarily trying to look out for the common good of the community. So I have a lot of just basic legal concerns with how it's written. And as Robert mentioned, it requires anyone proposing something to go through months, maybe even a years long development approval process with the town to even get the chance at having to run a political campaign for the right to have their business here. And I just don't think, practically speaking, that's not a good practical approach. And I think our current process, as Robert mentioned, there's lots and lots of avenues for public input where we try to take in the different viewpoints of the town. And there are different viewpoints of the town for any development that is proposed to come to Timnath. And we try to work to find a middle ground, find compromise where possible. And I think this approach is one that turns private property rights into just an all or nothing political battle, winner take all. I don't think that's the right approach for Timnath. And I do think if we come across as hostile to commercial development by writing amendments into our charter that explicitly target a specific business, I don't think that's a reputation that helps us attract the kinds of businesses that you may want to see in Timnath, even if there's a specific business that you may not want to. And, I hope we can find middle ground and compromise on any development that comes to Timnath. We haven't decided. As the mayor mentioned, I have no idea what the rest of the council feels about any reported business that might be coming to Timnath, because we haven't discussed it. But I do want us to, I think it's best if we have a community that brings in all the input and we're governed by the rule of law, and not just, can your neighbor dictate because they don't like you or don't like your business, can they dictate whether or not you're welcome in town? I think we just need to find more chances to moderate and unify and find workable solutions together. So I do support this resolution, and I certainly support the right of those to move forward with all their petitions and efforts there. I suspect you will get the votes or the signatures to get on the ballot. But I do think it's worth us putting our position out there, being on the record, particularly because there is information going out there from multiple sides at this point. I'm sure you've all seen some things that have gone out at this point. So I think it's worth adding our voice to the conversation, since everyone's already talking about it.
Luke?
Yeah, I always want to support people's interests in the future of the town. I think anybody who's active in the future of this town is a benefit to it. I really want our residents to be involved in our committees, our boards, and our planning sessions, and that's really how we should operate. I echo some of the concerns about this, the legal ramifications around property rights. I definitely echo that concern and the risk of litigation. I'll just echo what Brett said, and I think it's important that the council puts their message out there, and I support this resolution.
Any further comments? Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 10, series 2023? A resolution of the council of the town of Timnath opposing the proposed ballot initiative amending the town charter regarding approval protocols for proposed building submittals over 60 feet.
I move to approve resolution number 10, series 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of resolution number 10, series 23, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Resolution 10, series 2023, a resolution of the council of the town of Timnath opposing the proposed ballot initiative amending the town charter regarding the approval protocols for the proposed building submittals over 60 feet, passed unanimously. Anybody have any other comments? Melissa, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.